It's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight for this very special event. I want to thank those of you who are members of our Russian Arts and Culture Society. Your support means so much to the museum. We really couldn't do the things we do without your help and dedication. Also, thanks to our trustees who are here tonight and our volunteers and friends of Pam's who have come from all over the country for this very, very special exhibition. We're so pleased to have Pam here all the way from Washington State. And right now I'm going to introduce our curator, Dr. Masha Zavialova, who is the one who brought Pam's work here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming here today. And I should say about this exhibition, like many of our exhibitions, when I start to introduce them, I would say this is the first exhibition that does this and that. And this actually is the first show where we show work by an American artist who has no Russian background, but she has the creative artistic lineage that goes back to Nikolai Fashion. And these paintings are close in their style and in the technique to the Russian tradition. But the Russian realist tradition at the same time is Italian, because the Academy of Fine Arts was established by Elizabeth, the daughter of Peter the Great, Empress Elizabeth, in 1757, when St. Petersburg was an attraction to many Western artists, and a lot of Italian and German and Dutch artists taught at the Academy of that later became the Imperial Academy of Fine Arts. And Pam has a similar background, so she studied at the Accademia di Belle Arti in Florence. So same roots, ancient. It's not like the connection is not immediate. It does not even belong to the 20th century. It goes way back. And I think it's a wonderful initiative. It's a wonderful new project for us when we show American artists that somehow find their artistic heritage back in, it could be this realist impressionist tradition, probably. Next show will be more about Russian avant-garde, but this is like our first, and we're grateful to you for your art and that you came here in person, and we would like to hear from you about this art.
Okay. So, I'm in a museum. So, some of you might have been here this afternoon, so you might have heard a little bit of this before. But, so I saw the Russian Impressionist paintings, some of them in the Overland exhibit many years ago, in the late 90s, mid-90s, and I always wanted to see them again. I went back 3 times actually to it. I was showing in Scottsdale, so every time I would go to that museum, and I loved them, and I had notes about them, and I just loved them. So whenever someone said Minneapolis, I'd go, oh God, I really want to go to Minneapolis, that museum. And then some friends who are here invited Michael, my husband, who's there in a blue shirt, to come to Minneapolis. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I want to do there. And I wrote to Masha and asked if she would give me a tour. So I came and got to see the back rooms and all the paintings, and I was overwhelmed. It was so marvelous. And then she said, I think we should have a show for you. And I said, okay. But anyway, so that was exactly a year ago. It was June last year. So my background, both my parents were artists. My dad was an art professor at a Jesuit university, Gonzaga in Spokane. And my mom was a graphic artist, although she liked to paint portraits. And so I sat for her when I was 8, and I watched her paint. My dad taught in Italy at Gonzaga in Florence, so we went there when I was 8 years old, and I went to school there. And I remember my mom sitting in the shoemaker's little cobbler place, painting the shoemaker, and then trading the painting for some shoes. And my mom, and she loved doing it, but the shoes never fit her. and he, when she mentioned that to him, he said, "Do you want to please your eyes or your feet?" So my grandma got the shoes. But I'll never forget her painting right there, you know, and so they introduced me to painting, and I loved painting. I love paintings, and we went to museums. They love to travel, so we actually went to, it was called Leningrad then, to the museums there when I was 13, and so I had this kind of background, but I wasn't any better than anybody else. I was just a normal kid, you know, drawing the same kind of things everybody did. And then I didn't know if I wanted music or art, and when I was going to college, and I could go for free to where he taught, and he goes, "Oh, we don't have a very good music department, you should do art." So then I heard him say, when I signed up for classes, he goes, "Now I've got her." So I sat with him, and then I did a few other things after college, but I still had this in the back of my head. I really, really want to paint. Later I decided if I'm painting for them, or is it what I really want? Is it my parents? I don't know. And finally I decided, okay, I really want this. I don't care if I got it from my parents. It's not anything like that. I better paint. And then I found, through some other people, this teacher, and he was marvelous. He's just a shy little guy. I mean, and I'm tall, you know, so he's like this little guy. But everyone was in love with him because his paintings were so beautiful. And he had studied, his name was Ron Lucas, and he had studied with Sergei Bongard, who had immigrated from Russia. And Sergei had studied in Kiev. I don't know if I say that right. And his teacher was Peter, I don't know how to say that in Russian, Peter Kotov, and his teacher was Nikolai Fechin. And then, of course, that goes back farther too. So I studied with Ron for about 3 years, and I was like someone with their hair on fire looking for a bucket. I mean, I was just like, I have to learn this, and he kept saying he was going to leave, and I was like, I have to learn this from him. I thought I'd never learn it. It was really hard, and then he left, moved to LA, and I started painting and teaching a little bit, and slowly, that was in the 90s, and after about 3 years, I'm like, oh, I'm starting to make my living at this. So that's how it started. And okay, that's the background, and just to not go on, but I'll just talk about kind of the color palette and type of things I like to paint. So all of these paintings are with just 5 colors. I use a very limited palette. When I started, I wanted all of them. You know, they're so gorgeous. They're just so beautiful. And then Ron put me on a color diet. And I stayed true to my diet. I once in a while put an extra little color in, but usually I have 2 reds. Actually now only 1 yellow, a warm yellow. I find I can put white in it to cool it down. If this doesn't make sense, don't worry. And I have 2 blues, and I have white. Sometimes I use black, hardly, unless I really need it. So they're all from those colors. And I always paint warm. I just am attracted to that. My teacher was not a warm painter, but I see it warm. I would paint the same thing next to another artist, and mine would be warm and theirs would be cool. It's just the way it is. And I can't change, I've tried. I try to put more blues in it. I like to do portraits, and I do a portrait show every year of about 50 portraits of a small community. So I started on Vashon, and I painted 50 portraits, and then that, I was saying to somebody earlier that I was kind of shy, and I didn't know if it was gonna work, so I took little videos of people in town, like the lady at the pet store, and the person at the grocery store, and people that other people knew too, would recognize, and then I had a show on the island, and I invited them to come, and it was marvelous experience. So I decided I better paint another small community. So I kept going to different countries and usually bringing them back to Vashon, the paintings, and having a show on Vashon. And then all of those people, I learned early from a whole nother thing that I needed to give something back to the model. So I always give a print of the painting to the model, because most of those people can't buy a painting, but they might want a print. And if the painting sells, which sometimes it does, I give 10% back to the model and 10% to the community of wherever it was. Sometimes that meant a lot, like in Jamaica. It paid for a guy's school for the whole year, a couple $100 was a big deal. But in Alaska, it was practically a dinner. It was so expensive up there. And it's helped me because I really like to travel. I got that bug from my parents too. So it's taken me to India. This woman was in India. She's a nun, actually, a Catholic nun. But she was gardening that day, so she had that red cover on. Or I also got to do one project that I really love doing. My friend Mary Jude, who happens to be here, right there, she works in Chicago with refugees, and she was visiting me, and I thought, I should paint your refugees. So I got to go to Chicago, and I took little videos of all these people from all over the world, and then we had a show there, and they came, and they did dancing, and they brought food. It was just a marvelous opening, fantastic. And then we brought them back to, I think we did it at Vashon first and then there. But they each got a print, and they put their pictures up on Facebook, and they're telling their families in Central Africa, or Burma or wherever. Anyway, it was marvelous. So I've been doing that for about 17 years, and I love doing portraits, so that's that. And otherwise, even the portraits, I like everyday people. So, I know Rick Steves is kind of famous, but that's probably the most famous person I've ever painted. And that was just because he was in the community where I was painting. So, but the rest of the people are just normal, everyday people. And the things I like to paint, like Fridays, or, teacups and pots and things like that. Or, I keep going back to Italy, so I always have Italian stuff. And then the boats are in the water is because I live on an island near Seattle. I live on Vashon Island. And so that's every day for us. So, yeah, I think that's all I can say. That's a lot, more than even some of my family. Thank you for allowing me to show in the museum. When I walked in, I burst into tears. It's just beautiful, the most beautiful place I've ever shown. So thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to thank Pam for sharing her art here, and I just love your stories, Pam.
Oh!
It's so wonderful. Because an artist always gives a unique perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can talk about like the still lifes and water, but the artist always suddenly she begins to talk about the 5 colors, right? That you would never guess. And art historians would write about subject matter, but these things are like the secrets of the trade. You can only learn from you. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing I forgot. Some of the titles are very clever. Those are all belong to Michael, my husband.